Hi, my name is Paul Leeming. I'm the director of Pieces of 8, Chapter 1. Welcome to the behind the scenes commentary, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about the creating a story through limitations. Imagine a white sheet of paper, nothing on it, just blank sheet, it's totally empty. I'm going to say to you, create a story. Where do you start? Could tell a story about anything basically, but what do you want to tell stories about? Do you want to tell the hero story, the hero myth? It's a very classical story. Do you want to tell a cautionary tale? Really, it's hard to pin down initially what you need on this white sheet of paper. Now I draw a box on that sheet of paper. So, okay, create a story in the box. Aha! You've got a limitation now. You've got a box. Immediately, I've said box. Now you're thinking box. I can create a story about a box. A room is four walls, like a box. There's a cat in a box, Schrodinger's cat. I can tell a story about time travel. I've given you a limitation, and because of the limitation, suddenly you've become creative. It's really that simple, but it's also very hard. So this is the essence of using limitation to create story. In the case of Pieces of 8, it was given a couple of limitations at the very beginning when invited to make the film. The first was we have to use the YouTube set and that they were creating, and at the time I met them, the concept was just a concept on a piece of paper, a drawing of the set that would be. And they said, well, you're going to have a set with four walls, and all this furniture and things, and you've got an outdoor set, that's going to be a well and a couple of other things. Here's a limitation, and it's got to be a horror movie, so there's a big limitation. So now I can start to put together a framework and say, a horror movie set in a room, four walls, I have to be there, so I'm essentially stuck using this. Stuck, I'm trapped. Oh, I can make a story about somebody being trapped in a room. So this is how we start creating through limitation. And people always worry about limitations. I've got all these problems, I can only do this, or I've got to use this actor.
This is the girl.
I'm told to use this set, or, I've got no money. It's always a big limitation and continues to be so. But these are challenges to challenge you to be creative. How do you solve these problems to tell a story and to move people? Because that's ultimately what we do as directors. We move people. We manipulate them in a good way, such that at the end of the film, they feel something, they've been moved, they've learned something, they're thinking about the consequences of the story, the character arc, they relate to the character. And our job as director is to move all those things along and move the audience in such a way that at the end they're happy. Not necessarily happy with the outcome of the film, because a negative ending in a film can still be an ending. But it's about moving the audience from A to B such that at the end of the journey, they relate to the character, they understand what changed, and they relate that to themselves, their own lives. And as a result, they are internally happy at having watched the film and enjoyed the film. Even if it's a negative ending or a positive ending, doesn't matter. So we have some limitations. I got these limitations. I have to make a horror movie in a room. And what else is a limitation? Budget. We have very small budget. Okay. So you can't have a cast of thousands. Ben-Hur's not going to work in this situation. So let's make it intimate. Let's make it small. We have one room, not too many angle variations we could do, not too many cool, locations we could use. So we've got to keep it intimate. We've got to keep it personal. Lots of close-ups, lots of emotional changes from the actors that will draw you in and make you forget the limitations of the room. Because in this world, this room is infinite. This room is a metaphor for the character of being trapped, not in a room, but in here, in her mind. And, we can avoid walls. We can be stuck inside prison for years and it won't break us. What breaks us is our own minds. You break the mind, you break the body. So I wanted to tell a story that took place where the character is trapped by herself, by her actions. I tend to prefer working with female actors as a rule, because they are, to me, more interesting, that they are stronger characters. I feel there's a lack of strong female characters in film, and I want to see them. I want to see those characters, and I want to see them grow and evolve and deal with the world. In this case, the mother character, she's in a sense dealing with the afterlife, the afterworld. You know, she's dealt with what she did in the real world in a bad way, and it's now coming back to her, and she's going to have to learn from it. Does she learn from it in the end? I leave that a little bit to the audience, and of course, as the title suggests, this is chapter 1, so is there a way that the mother character can move on? I've left it open to you to decide. One of the things I wanted to do with the limitations is to create a circular story. Now, this can be very difficult because there needs to be a special internal consistency such that at the end of the film, when it loops back around, you can still examine what came before and have it make sense. You know, time travel stories deal with this kind of internal consistency problem. And in this case, we're making a story about purgatory in a sense, and it's also got to loop around. And so you have to pay very close attention to, you know, everything from the design. Like at the beginning, she has blood on her dress. Now, where did that come from? At the beginning, you don't know, but she's screaming, okay? So maybe we didn't catch something that happened before. But remember, at the end of the film, oh, maybe now we know where the blood came from. But did it come from the baby? Don't know, because in the real world, she aborted the baby. So I'm creating this idea that there's more than one reason for everything in the frame. And that is in parallel with the two worlds I created. One is this kind of beginning world where the room seems normal, but there's whispering and, you know, it's a very creepy atmosphere. And then you have what I call the birth room. It's the eggs are there, and, you know, when things change and the baby is there, this is the consequences of her actions in the real world. And at the end, when it loops back around with the flash of lightning, you have to remember that everything that's placed in the room is there for a reason. And for those that are paying attention, if you look around the room, especially in the birth room, you'll see there are a few little hints as to the looping scenario that I've created. And these things are important when creating an internal consistency for your film, because there's nothing worse than watching a film and there's a climax and you didn't set up the payoff. And this is a problem I see in a lot of films, especially short films and even feature films, is that if you're going to have a payoff, you've got to set it up. And this is a really important part of story making. So set it up, pay it off. The audience, if they think of the answer, or if you manipulate them to realize the answer just before you reveal it, they'll love your film. They'll always love your film, because as an audience, you want to think, hey, I got this, I understand it. So a good director will actually set up the hints and then pay them off just in a way that you pay it off and they go, wait a minute, is that? Oh yes it is! Ha, I was so good, I figured it out all by myself. When if you're good, you've actually manipulated them into thinking of it themselves. And that is part of the trick of directing. And it's a manipulation, we admit it's a manipulation. But that's what we do, and that's how you tell stories. If you think, you know, one of the classic things I always think of, I'm a Star Wars fan, and thinking of C-3PO in Return of the Jedi telling the Ewoks the stories of the Empire and the Rebellion. And the little Ewoks are all, you know, listening with rapt attention, because they're setting up a story and paying it off, because the payoff is right in front of them. These are the heroes, and by setting it up and you're saying, wow, these guys are the heroes, they get it. You know, we are all fundamentally simple creatures in that we want to hear stories and we want to learn and evolve through storytelling. You know, the first paintings on the wall, the cavemen painted what they ate, you know, they were hunting. But you find out there's always a payoff, right? Even at the early ages, like they're chasing they're catching, now they're eating, they're celebrating. You know, there's a setup and a payoff, even in the cave paintings, because that's how we appreciate good storytelling. So hopefully you've had a little bit of insight into, you know, using limitations and some basic storytelling techniques to craft, you know, a very small story in a short film and have it pay off and be satisfying to an audience. Thank you very much for listening, and do stay tuned for the rest of the series and check out some of my other movies, both in the horror and sci-fi genre, on the same channel.
If we have blood, it'll hide that red.
Yeah.
It won't, so I think that's
It's a great idea. Blood is the great cover-upper.
Yeah.